Welcome to the 311 Griffin YouTube channel. This is a review of Hogwarts Legacy, the game, and this review may not be that relevant at this point since it is a single-player game that has been out since February. Most people that were going to buy the game have probably already done so, although there may be some people who are going to pick it up on sale at some point. But I wanted to do a review. I don't do that many game reviews, but this one, since I did buy it right when it came out, I do want to do a review since it's not years after it was released. The reason I haven't done a review yet is because I wanted to finish the game and I wanted to make all of my videos from the content that I had recorded. And now I'm done with that, and so I can proceed with the review. I wanted to make sure that I had experienced the entire game and done a good job of trying to complete it all the way, done everything that I wanted to do in the game, and been able to check out all of the aspects of the game before I did a review. So what we're going to do in this video is we're going to talk about some specifics, and then at the end of the video I will include some of my favorite moments from my time in the game. All of this footage is stuff that I recorded while playing, and we're going to review based on a matrix that I have created. If I do more game reviews in the future, I may adjust this as we go, but what I'm trying to do is break the game down into very specific parts so that instead of rambling for an hour about what I liked about the game and what I didn't, I could try to quantify the game based on things that I believe matter to most people. So this matrix may not make sense, and I also want to point out that I am a pretty critical person, and so you can see based on this screen that the composite score for Hogwarts Legacy is 83.5. That may seem very low. It is on a 0 to 100 base scale. So that is a B- if you are in school, but the truth is that that's a pretty high score, and of course this isn't school. This isn't where a 50 would be an F necessarily, although I would say a 50 would be a game I probably wouldn't suggest buying. But in this case, the general idea here is that I did very much enjoy this game, and I am being extremely critical of it, and that is why it is an 83.5. So I've broken this down. This may not make total sense, but I've broken this down into three major categories. We have construction, we have decoration, and we have delivery. Some of the sub items under those may really be a little bit, they could be in either category, I don't know, but that's just the way I broke it down. So also I want to point out that construction and decoration are double weighted. So what I did was those get multiplied by 2, and then they get added together with the delivery score, and then the total gets divided by 5. So it doesn't make a huge difference, but those are more important to me than the items under delivery. The items under delivery could be overcome pretty easily or may not matter that much, because what I'm really focused on here is the first playthrough. How good was it? Although replayability is something that I care about. So let's get into construction first of all. We have the ease of installation. I was going to count off a little bit because there's always somewhere that you can improve with a game, but that's not really fair. Was it easy to install? Yes. Now, I bought this through Epic Games because that was the only platform that I found on PC that would allow me to install early. But it was very easy to install. I had no problems with installation. It just downloaded, it installed, it was good to go. Whenever I ran it for the first time, it ran very well. It installed all of the things it needed to install, and it fired right up. So there was nothing for me to mark off there. Ease of use. Basically, it was really easy to use. It fired up, it launched, things were good. The only thing I didn't really like about using the game was that There are some menus that get changed during the tutorial, towards the end of the tutorial, once you get your field guide. I couldn't figure out how to close the game, and it seems really stupid once I figured out how to navigate to the settings menu and in the settings menu from the field guide. But the first time after I got my field guide, I actually had to Control Alt Delete kill the game to get out of it, because I couldn't figure out. I spent 3 or 4 minutes, and you might laugh at that if you didn't struggle with that, but my real job in real life is testing computer software. I do make mistakes. I do think about things in stupid ways sometimes, but I'm struggling to believe that this is something other people don't have issues with. In fact, I know an Xbox player who also had issues. It was quite a bit different and actually worse for him on Xbox Series X, I think it is, the newest Xbox. He had it worse than I did, but he also struggled with it, and he is also an extremely intelligent person who works with computers regularly. So, marks off for that, but not bad. It was pretty easy to use, other than those two things that didn't really get in my way once I figured it out. Bugs. There were some bugs. I had a bug with one of the giant spiders one time that wound up working out. I had some bugs with one of the Depulso puzzles. They were pretty frustrating bugs, especially the Depulso challenge one, but they were not debilitating. Um, they didn't keep me from continuing the game, and uh, in my memory, to my knowledge, I had no crashing bugs or anything like that. So those are the ones that I really start counting off for, is crashing bugs or things that keep you from being able to finish the game. Responsiveness to bugs. This is in the Matrix, but I saw that there were some updates to the game. The updates went pretty smoothly. I don't know what they were updating. I don't know what bugs they were fixing. I never went and checked the change log, so I just left this score out. It's not really relevant to my case here. I assume they fixed some bugs. I assume that they did it relatively quickly, so I could have put a high score in there, probably a 95. But then let's get into mechanics. The game mechanics are very good. Mechanics could be under decoration as well, because it's part of the game that you are seeing and interacting with on a regular basis. But they are very good. I had some issues with camera angles, with dodging and targeting and stuff like that, mostly with the camera angles. All in all, I think the mechanics were pretty good. I could see this score being a little bit higher. Mostly, I just wish that there was a first-person view. I prefer to play games in first-person view. Also, in third-person view, I played The Witcher 3 in third-person view, and I liked it a lot better than Hogwarts Legacy's third-person view. So there's something about the field of view, and maybe there's some ways to change that. I didn't look into it too much, but by default, this view is worse than Witcher 3 view. I think that this game is very similar in many ways to The Witcher 3. And that's a good thing, because The Witcher 3 is amazing. But the camera, I just didn't really like the camera that much. Not a huge deal. So let's get into decoration. The composite here is an 80. That is only low because I didn't really like the story very much, and there are some issues with the extra content. Not issues, the extra content just wasn't very good. So I considered leaving out the extra content because I don't think it should be weighted as heavily as the rest of this category. I certainly think that world visuals and story immersion are much more important than the extra content. And probably when I get done with this, I'll add it up without the extra content in it, and we'll see what kind of a score we get. But world visuals, that is very important in a game like this. This game looks great. Could it look better? Possibly. But the meshes and textures were very, very good. The lighting was very good. And I have another category here for running smooth, or the efficiency of making it look good. That's also very high because I have a slightly older system. I have a 1080 Ti. My CPU's not that great, and I've got 32 gigabytes of RAM. And I am running this on an old mechanical hard drive. and it ran pretty good with just a few stutters. Not many stutters. Let's back up here to world size. I gave this a 90. I actually started off giving this a lower score because it is smaller than a lot of other single player RPGs. For instance, The Witcher 3 or Skyrim or something like that. Now, um, judging the land size in a game is very difficult because it depends on how you get around that land, and game units are very difficult to measure. Hogwarts Legacy is much bigger than I thought it would be. And I don't think there are any problems with how big this game is. I was very happy with it. It is smaller than some other games, but I was very happy with it. World Immersion, I scored this at 100. You could probably find some areas to detract from it, but the game does a great job of keeping the player in the universe, and there are so many details in and around Hogwarts, different parts of the castle. Hogwarts itself, the castle, is amazing, and if anything, you should get bonus points. The game should get bonus points for the hallways. There's always something going on in the castle. There are hallways that have music, magical instruments playing. There are challenges everywhere. There are people doing things. The world is very, very alive, and that's very good. I think if there was anything that I wanted to dock this category for specifically, it would be the fact that there's no real time cycle in terms of the NPCs. You can go to a shop anytime you want. The sun comes up and goes down. The moon and the stars come out, but everybody's basically doing the same thing no matter what time of day it is. Customization is quite low, and this is one that I do think matters, especially for an RPG. There are quite a few preset options for the players to choose from, but there's no actual customization. So you can pick different things like hair color, hair length, kind of basically how you look, but you can't really customize it. You can change the items and that you're wearing. You can change the way they look based on other things in the game, which is kind of cool, and that's a neat system. I like the way the system works for changing the items so that you can get a legendary item but make it look like something else. But I really wish that you could change the colors of things. I don't necessarily feel like the game needs to allow you to change the clothing besides that, but changing the color of the items you're wearing would be a very cool thing, and it's something that the game could probably do fairly easily. So I counted off for this just because there's not a lot of player customization and there's not a lot of item customization, aside from just picking the items you're wearing. Player leveling, there's nothing inherently wrong with how you level in this game, and it's fun to unlock new abilities. And just to level up in general. But really all that happens when you level is you can use higher leveled items and you can unlock I don't remember right off the top of my head what they're called, but you can unlock the different things that, for instance, causes Flipindo to be a curse. You can kind of customize your spells a little bit, and your herbology use and things like that. The potions, how powerful the potions are and things like that. You can unlock those. The problem is that if you play the game the way it's intended to be played, you can unlock almost all of those, and there's really no limit to, well, there is a limit, but it's a very mild limit to how much you can level. So what winds up happening is all players are going to basically progress the same way. You'll probably play slightly differently. You'll have your favorite spells and your favorite things that you want to do, but most players are going to play the same way. And so player leveling takes a hit because of that. There's no way to like pick your class. There's nothing about being in different houses that changes the way you play the game. It would have been nice if the house that you picked would have changed some of the spells that you had access to, or maybe if there was a more detailed customization character building screen where you got to pick some different traits that affected your resilience and your ability to cast certain spells and the power of your spells and your resistance to spells and things like that. Now I know a lot of other RPGs do that kind of stuff, and maybe it's trite, maybe that's a little too complicated. I also want to keep in mind that the target audience for this game might include younger people who probably shouldn't be playing The Witcher 3. and they wanted to keep it simple. So I'm okay with that, but that's a long explanation of why the player leveling is an 80 and not a 90. Player item visuals, 90%. They look good. Again, we lack some customization. They get a little bit repetitive at times because a lot of them look the same, but they look good. Item quantity takes a hit because there are a lot of items, but most of them look close to the same. They're pretty repetitive. There could be more. There could be different items, things like that. So item relevance, 95%, because the items are relevant to the game for the most part. Sometimes some of the items you're wearing look or seem a little bit irrelevant. You're a student going to Hogwarts and you're wearing goofy glasses and hats around sometimes, but it's kind of fun to play with that kind of stuff too, so I didn't hit it too hard for that one. Now we're going to take another hit here with story writing quality. Now the story isn't that bad. It's better than a lot of game stories that I've played over the years and even recently. I would say that this story, totally different kind of a story, but this story is way better, almost infinitely better than the Modern Warfare 2 story, the new one, not the old one. The old one wasn't that great either, but the new one is absolute trash. But compared to something like the Witcher 3 story, not even close to as good. Compared to, let's say, the Skyrim story, I would say the Skyrim story is a little better. It has some plot holes as well. It has some things that aren't perfect as well, but I would say the Skyrim story is a little better. So this particular story has a lot of plot holes and forced plot points, and I would point to the Sebastian story, Poppy's story, and the main story as those forced plot points. And what I mean by forced plot points is basically situations where we're going to force you to make a decision as the character, and we're going to force you to advance the story by using something that didn't make sense to happen, didn't need to happen, or something that negatively affects everyone in the game, and the players and all of the people around you should have known that it was going to negatively affect the story, negatively affect them. So when Sebastian starts trying to force things to happen to help his sister out, and he's not really waiting around at all, a little bit of that's okay, but it got to the point where he was even coming up with ideas that would have been valid to try, but then he didn't wait around to do it, and the story never allows you to do it because the story wants to force a confrontation between people. And in Poppy's story, which bothered me less, but there are a lot of cases in Poppy's story where by trying to save something, you're making it so that the enemies are going to have a chance to find that thing. So you're doing the opposite of saving it. And that was my big problem with the main story as well. Within the main story, there's a situation, actually the entire final climax is basically like all of the things that were told to you during the main story didn't really matter after all. And then on top of that, you make a choice at the end of the game that doesn't even matter. It's the biggest choice in the game. It's basically treated as if like everything in the world that you're playing in hinges on this decision. And yet, when the story plays out, it doesn't even matter. So I should actually count off more for the story writing quality than what I have. The more I think about it, the more I think that the writing in this game is poor. But I will leave it at a 75. So the story length, I gave it a 95. It's sufficiently long. I've got a lot of hours in this game. I have basically 22 hours, roughly, on YouTube, and I probably chopped out 50% of the content. So I've probably got like 44 to 50 hours, maybe even more in this game. And I wasn't really dilly-dallying around. I was playing through. I was doing a lot of side quests, but I was doing the main story a lot of the time. Very good in terms of length. Story immersion, 90. I don't have any glaring issues with that at all. The story immersion, everything kind of fit together. Side quest quantity, I've got it at a 90. There could be more, but there was plenty to do. Quality, 85. Most of the side quests are good. Sometimes the people are asking you to do things that they could do. They don't really need you to do them, so it's just there as something for you to do. It's fine, not a big deal. Doesn't get too repetitive. It's just that some of the time the side quests just seem sort of silly. So extra content. What I'm counting here is the stuff I got for buying whatever the cool edition of the game was. There wasn't much there. And in terms of quality, it was mostly garbage. The clothing items, I didn't really like them. I barely ever used them. The Thestral, I couldn't even use it until I got a real Thestral anyway from the game. So it just, maybe there's a way you could use it, but I could not figure out how to use that Thestral as a mount. So essentially I didn't have it. As soon as I caught a wild Thestral, the game told me that oh look, you've got this special named Thestral that you can use now. Like, I don't care. It looked identical to the one I caught. I could literally name the one I caught the same name. So honestly, like, it wasn't that much. I think it was $10 extra. Yeah, it was. It was $10 extra US. Not a big deal, but there just wasn't enough stuff there, and it wasn't very good. So other relevant items, I threw this in basically to give a bonus for the sheer number of challenges and puzzles that are in the game. They get a little bit repetitive at times, but there is a lot to do in this game, and it's actually pretty well varied. I mean, it does get old because you're having to do it a lot, but there's just a lot of puzzles to solve, a lot of different types of puzzles, and they're all over the place. So it's actually pretty cool just running around the place, and there's all these magical things that you can interact with to try to get extra stuff. So very cool. One thing I didn't count in here, and I probably should have, is the room of requirement. You can have your own space, which I always like that in an RPG. I would have liked that to have been a little bit easier to customize, and I would have liked for the game to not start adding rooms after I'd customized that wall, because all my stuff would disappear. I'd finally get a wall set up, and then it would all disappear because the room would decide I needed more stuff. It would have been cool to be able to have like a place outside of, like, go take over an old ruined castle, or have a little house somewhere or something that you could decorate, but I'm not going to count off for that. There's just a lot of extra stuff in the game, and that's kind of cool. So let's get down here into delivery, and again, this is weighted a little bit less than the other stuff, and I just threw this stuff in here because I didn't know where else to put it. We've got tutorial quality, 90, other than changing the menus and trying to learn the camera angles, which I've kind of covered elsewhere, so I'm not counting off for that here, but the tutorial was very good. It's a lengthy tutorial, but it's kind of seamless. It makes you feel like you're playing the game. You're also learning how to play the game. You're also getting the basis for the story, and then boom, you're in the game. So this is kind of the way to do it. So the learning curve, scored it really well. This game was easy to learn. Even the spell casting and stuff like that, they do a good job of teaching you that, and it's pretty easy to pick up. I'd say it was easier to pick up than The Witcher 3. I may have also had an easier time of learning this because it has some similarities to games like The Witcher 3, and I've played The Witcher 3 before, so maybe that's why it was a little bit easier to pick up. Now, replayability. At its best, you don't have much reason to replay this game. It's not that you won't want to for nostalgia's sake or something like that, or just to try out a different character, but your character's basically going to be the same, and choosing a different house isn't necessarily going to make it any different. You're going to have a different common room and bedrooms. That's cool, but aside from that, there's really nothing. Like, your robes will be different if you're wearing those pieces of clothing. I'm guessing that your character interactions will be a little bit different. You'll have other characters that you befriend. I do plan on playing through again as a different character and choosing a different house, but I don't have a lot of incentive to do so because the bulk of the game is going to be very, very similar, and it's going to feel very repetitive. Once again, overall composite score is an 83.5. I could see that getting up into the low 90s perhaps if I were a little bit less critical, and if I went back through and took out some things like maybe weighted replayability even lower, and then took out some of this extra content. This game was good. It's one of the best games I've played in a while. Anyway, I'm going to wrap up the review. So now basically what you're going to see is the rest of this video is going to be just some of my favorite moments from the game, and I'm not going to talk. So thank you for watching. I hope this was helpful. Happy playing, and take care.
Merlin's beard? How did you... Wait! We do.
Petrificus totalis! Petrificus!
Also, I should warn you. I will so. Accio. Also. I will also. Accio. Confringo. Shame nobody saw that. It's you. Confringo. Compulso. Hard to hit. Incendio! I shall kill you for this when I get Expulso! Levioso! Compulso!
Reductor!
I don't trust Ranrock, I'll tell you that. He'll turn on us first chance he gets.
No! Take it! Expulso! Perhaps you ought to give up.
You've made a grave mistake.
You'll die for that.
Expulso! Expulso!
What have you done? Confringo. Also. One less foul hulking brute. Wingardium Leviosa. Accio. Confringo.
Science is a demon.
Also. Leviosa. Confringo. I did it. And an Ashwinder, no less. Lumos.
Lumos.